Not to be a big complainer, but the first trimester was hard. And when I was going through it, I just felt like no one really prepared me. Sure, I knew that nausea was a common thing. I knew that you could potentially throw up a little or a lot, but it was so much more than I expected. So whether you're wondering what exactly you can expect from it, or just looking for some comfort as you go through it yourself, look no further. I'm here for you. And I'm ready to tell you the truth about the first trimester of pregnancy. I'm not 100% sure how many people would find a video like this useful, but what I do know is that when I was feeling sick and, quite frankly, miserable, something that really helped me was looking up stories, whether it be articles or forums, of symptoms and other women's first trimester experiences so that I could feel less alone, so I could stop feeling insane because of all the random things I was smelling that no one else seemed to notice, and so that I could gauge a rough timeline of when it might end. Misery loves company, I guess. Before I got pregnant, I guess I just didn't give any of it much thought. That's not true. My sister experienced a lot of heart issues when she was pregnant because she has a pre-existing condition. And so if anything, I was scared of that. But I didn't give anything else much thought. And I guess I just thought it wouldn't be that big of a deal. You know, like I'm going about my day. Oh no, I throw up. Continue about my day. Incorrect. So when I first found out I was pregnant, I was like super excited. I actually have a video on exactly how we found out. I'll link it in the cards above, so do check that out. But after I found out and the happiness was like settling in, I was still happy, but I also started to feel just a little bit bored. I was like, well, what do I do for fun now? But don't worry, the boredom didn't last long, because shortly after I started to feel sick. It changed very quickly, and before I knew it, I didn't have time to be bored. I did not have time to be bored. I wasn't just nauseous sometimes. The first phase of my morning sickness came, and during that period, I was nauseous constantly. Like, not worried that I was going to get physically sick nauseous, but it was just always with me, sitting there. I remember taking a shower and being so nauseous and just thinking, like, it's been several weeks. How am I supposed to live like this? I remember this one morning we had eaten breakfast and tried to go on a walk to help the nausea. It didn't work. And the only thing I could do was lie my head on my husband's lap and just sit there, miserable. But it wasn't all hopeless. There were several things I found that either temporarily relieved the nausea or helped to reduce it significantly. The first thing that I discovered is drinking something cold took it away momentarily, like as I was drinking it. Something like an icy, a fruit smoothie with Greek yogurt, popsicles, Otter Pops. As long as I was eating that, I felt better. But as soon as it was gone, the nausea came right back. Another thing that I discovered really quickly was that keeping something in my stomach helped out a ton, even if it was something small. I tended to get sick more on an empty stomach than I did on a full stomach, but I found that I couldn't overdo it. I had to be careful about eating too rich of foods and eating too much because that could make it worse. One of the best things that I discovered was eating a protein and carb snack right before bed. I think I read this on a forum or an article, but they suggested protein and carbs before bed because the protein will digest slower and keep you full throughout the night, and the carbs, I don't know what the carbs do, but they work. So I got in the habit of having a Greek yogurt parfait with berries and maple syrup, and eventually that evolved to a Greek yogurt smoothie with berries and maple syrup. And immediately after I started doing this, I saw a huge improvement in my nausea. I went from feeling sick constantly to only feeling sick with triggers like smells and an empty stomach. It was the best thing I did for my morning sickness. It doesn't have to be Greek yogurt and fruit, it could be something else, but it helped out a ton. If you're going through it, I highly encourage you to try that out. It's funny because in the beginning of my pregnancy, I was like so motivated. I read that your baby can taste what you eat through your amniotic fluid. So if you eat a variety of healthy foods like vegetables, the baby will taste it and they are more likely to be less of a picky eater when they come out and grow up. So in the beginning of my pregnancy, I was like, I am going to eat so good. I'm going to get Swiss chard and bok choy and radishes and green beans and I don't know, all the vegetables that you can think of. I was going to eat them and I was going to feed that little baby very healthy, very vegetable-y amniotic fluid. By the 4th week of morning sickness, I had all but completely given up on vegetables. There was this one day where I literally ate cheesy hash browns for lunch. Not my proudest moment. But I mean, what can you do? It's just like you have high hopes and then reality slaps you in the face. Carbs were my very best friend. It was hard for me to get protein in sometimes. Thankfully, I didn't have like too much of an aversion to a lot of meat, but for sure some things just did not agree with me, and I don't know, it was rough. My husband was worried about me not getting enough variety in my diet and not being able to nurture the baby because my diet like declined so much. But I had read on some article that if your diet was generally healthy before you had the baby and all you're able to stomach in the first trimester is mashed potatoes, give yourself some grace. Your body will supplement the nutrition from before you got pregnant and before you start eating mashed potatoes 10 times a day, and the baby will be fine. So once I told him about that, he eased up on me and he let me, eat carbs freely. But early pregnancy Abby, before all the morning sickness, she would have been concerned too. In addition to not eating great, I was also eating 5 to 6 meals a day. One of those meals was the yogurt or smoothie at the end of the night. But I basically had to eat every 2.5 to 3 hours or I got sick. I was just so sick. There were times when I was so hungry, but everything sounded disgusting. But I mean, it was either eat something that doesn't sound good or be sick. So naturally, I ate. I also developed an aversion to water. Drinking it would churn my stomach, which is crazy because before I got pregnant, I was an avid water drinker. I would drink 10 to 16 cups a day on average, no problem, sometimes still be thirsty. In the first trimester, I really struggled sometimes to get to 5 glasses of water. 8 was like a miracle. I was so proud of myself if I could get to 8. But I tried everything. I tried mixing a little bit of juice into my water. I tried flavored water. I tried really cold water. Nothing seemed to help that much. There would be times when I was so thirsty that I would just be like, I don't care that it makes my stomach hurt. I'm just going to chug it. And I would chug it and then I would throw up. It was terrible. Terrible. But the thing that did help me was herbal tea. So I could stomach herbal tea if I mixed a teaspoon of honey in with it and it was hot. That one was the one thing that didn't turn my stomach, and that is how I prevented extreme dehydration in my first trimester. A lot of days it really felt like I was in survival mode. Luckily, I wasn't working during that time, and I did end up taking a break from YouTube because I just felt like there was no way. It really gave me a new appreciation for women who do work during that time, especially in a physical job, like in the medical field or in a restaurant, which is what I was doing before, or even like a warehouse job. I don't know how I could have done that during that time. I feel like I did not have it in me. To paint a picture for you, every morning I would get up and I would make my husband and I breakfast, and then we would sit down and we would eat together, and it would be something simple like eggs, bacon, a piece of toast. And when I was done eating, I had to sit or lie down and take a break before I could clean up the kitchen. And sometimes when I started cleaning up the kitchen, I had to stop and take another break because I was exhausted and because my stomach hurt so bad. I cannot imagine an 8 to 12 hour shift on your feet during that time. Another thing that I really struggled with during the first trimester was headaches. They were really bad headaches. And personally, I chose to try to limit pain medication during my pregnancy as much as possible. I know that women are discouraged from taking ibuprofen during their pregnancy because it can be dangerous for the baby. But I also read that acetaminophen, which is what they usually advise to take instead, may have an effect on the baby's brain. I think more research has to be done, but I just decided for me that that risk just wasn't. Oh, it's hailing. I just decided for me that that wasn't a risk that I was willing to take for some headache relief. So I decided I would only take acetaminophen if I felt like I really needed it. So I took it once on Halloween, once on Thanksgiving, because I had headaches both of those days, and one time when my headache was just so bad it was making me feel like I was gonna throw up. But I found very quickly that something that helped a ton with my headaches was putting an ice pack on my head wherever it was hurting. They were typically migraines, so they were on one side, and putting an ice pack over it almost completely took the pain away. Yeah, I would have to lie there and balance the ice pack, but I mean it wasn't a big deal. I could watch TV or go to sleep with it on my head, and that helped a lot and helped me to skip out on a lot of pain medication that I feel like I would have really needed had I not ended up trying the ice. Something else I really struggled with were stomach aches. These made it really hard to function normally, at all, even as a stay-at-home wife, no other kids running around. I would get them from standing too long, even sitting too long. There was this time where we went on a 1-hour car drive, and as soon as we got to the destination, I had to lie down on their couch because my stomach just hurt so badly. But I found if I rested, laid down, took a break, they would go away. So, I think that it really forced me to nurture myself, I guess, slow down and take it easy. I just couldn't push myself past a point. I think for this reason, mostly, not to mention the fatigue and the nausea and the headaches, if I had been working during this time, I would have had to take a leave of absence because I just feel like there was no way that I could have stayed on my feet for 8 hours when I was having a hard time doing something in the kitchen consistently for 30 minutes to an hour. Shortness of breath was another symptom that I noticed really early on. I get winded walking up the stairs now. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't in the best shape before I got pregnant, but I did not get winded that easily. It's funny because I'll be talking and sometimes I'll get short of breath. You might hear it in this video. Very breathy. I'm not dying. I'm just pregnant. I slept like crazy in the first trimester. I consistently needed to get 10 hours of sleep a night, and then sometimes I would want a nap on top of that. And most of my days then were very sedentary in general, but it was I could not get enough sleep. But I feel like the sleep was really good for me, and ultimately you're creating a baby and your body knows what you need, and I don't know, it was just such a blessing to be able to get that sleep and get that rest during that time. One of my weirdest symptoms was an aversion to leather. So I bought a leather bag and wallet when I first found out I was pregnant. It was actually a diaper bag and a wallet just for myself and a purse. I had to hide it deep in the hall closet because the sight of it made me sick, and talking about it still makes me a little sick. I think it was the smell, and then the smell became associated with the sight of it, but yeah, that was weird. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I would smell things that no one else could smell, and they would be very, very strong. Almost every time that I actually threw up, it was from smelling something that did not agree with me. Mostly I think it was linked to carpeted areas, but also things like soap, perfume, cologne, Dawn dish soap, Tide. I couldn't, and honestly, I'm in my second trimester and I still kind of can't. Unscented everything for now. Someone told me that they think that your aversion to things like scented candles and cologne is your body's way of protecting you and the baby because those things have a lot of toxins in them. And I thought that was interesting. I would get really strong cravings for foods. I need to have this right now. And then I would eat it once, and then I would never want it again. Like, borderline be disgusted by it. Like, it just did not sound good after the craving was fulfilled, like, one time. It was weird. It happened with multiple things. When I wasn't feeling nauseous, a lot of times I would get sad. But I think that that had a lot to do with factors outside of the pregnancy, and then the hormones probably just exacerbated it. But that was something that I definitely experienced. And then on top of that, I had lots of random crying, mostly over things that made me happy, like thinking about our vow renewal that we had this last year and how beautiful it was. We got married during the shutdown of 2020, so we finally got to celebrate publicly just this last year, and it was wonderful. Or when I would listen to songs about like father-daughter relationships and think about my husband and how good of a dad he would be, that would make me cry too. Overall, I described it to people as feeling like a shell of my old self. I felt really limited in a lot of ways, physically mostly, emotionally, and then there were just things I couldn't do anymore that I was able to do before. But I had to keep reminding myself that this too shall pass. You know, it's a season. Eventually, I would not be so sick and so tired, and that was true. You know, it passed. And also I had to remind myself that I was so lucky to get to chill, to not have to work, to not have to even work at a desk job. I think it would have been hard for me during that time. 3 years ago, I don't think that would have been the case. 2 years ago, I don't think that would have been the case. Even last year, it would have been so hard. So the fact that, you know, the timing was just perfect and I had the option to stay home and sleep and sit there for hours with ice packs on my head and be sick in the comfort of my own home, it really was a blessing. And then there was the part where I got to see my baby and hear her heartbeat. The first time I heard it, it was just so real. I was so happy that there was a heartbeat because, you know, there's so much anxiety in the first trimester. So many things can go wrong. You know, that's true for the entire pregnancy, and it's true for the child's life. You know, as a parent, you have very little control over most things. But hearing the heartbeat and seeing the baby for the first time, she was just a little bean, was a relief, but also surreal for me. And then I got another ultrasound like a week and a half later because of a scheduling mix-up, but it was so crazy to see how much the baby had grown in such a short amount of time. And then I got one more ultrasound in my first trimester, and that one made me cry because she just looked like such a little person. Like, she was always a person, but her little face was formed and you could see her nose and her lips, and it was just so crazy. Like, she's not even out of my womb yet and she's already growing so fast. And just seeing her, it gave me strength. It helped me to get through it. It's like my love for her overshadowed any discomforts I was going through. And sometimes on a really hard day, I would just pull up a picture of her and just marvel at the fact that she was in there, growing every day, alive. I just felt so much love, and I knew without a doubt that it was worth it. My morning sickness seemed to peak around 9 weeks, and then it started to ease up. I was kind of worried that it would be bad the whole time, because that can happen, apparently. But thank God it started to get better. There were some setbacks a few times where I felt like I was taking 2 steps back and just feeling much sicker again. But it was right after Thanksgiving and right after Christmas that this happened. And I think it was just from all the rich foods. They just did not agree with my pregnant body. My aversion to water went away. It's still not as easy for me to drink it, but it doesn't make me sick. I'm so happy about that. My stomach aches went away. Most of my nausea went away. And most of my headaches. Sometimes I still get an occasional headache, but it's nothing like it was in the first trimester. That's why they say the second trimester is the honeymoon phase, because the third is apparently very uncomfortable. I guess we'll find out. Now that I'm past the worst of it, I'm trying to get back into exercising and eating vegetables. 2 things that I just feel like I did not have in me during the first trimester. I'm also back to work on YouTube, as you can see, which feels really nice. I had a goal to be consistent and I broke that goal because I was just feeling so sick, but I really am excited to be back on it, and I feel like I have a good system now, and I'm hopeful that, you know, when the baby comes, that good system can continue. I still don't feel 100% normal. I still get out of breath, tired, nauseous, but it is nothing like the first trimester. Is much more manageable, and I feel more like myself than I have in a while. Ultimately, I'm not in a rush to get pregnant again after I have this baby. I want to enjoy her and like cherish her and just, I don't know, give her all of my attention when she's little and she needs it the most. And also give my body time to heal and rest. But looking back, I do feel like the sick period was a relatively short period of time in the scheme of things. When you put it in perspective, it is a small price to pay for a lifetime of love. I'm so cheesy, but that's how I feel. This baby is a gift from God and a blessing. Every baby is a gift from God and a blessing. And I'm so grateful that God gave me her. She was always meant to be my baby, and I was always meant to be her mama. I can't wait to meet you, baby.